Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, welcome. 2 minutes to spare, but before we're into the next day, and because I show up like a loaf of bread, nice and fresh. Yeah, it was one of those days, definitely one of those days that I just filled my day up for myself. I got so much done, but at the same time, I was able to create a little bit of a enjoyable day off. Hi, if you've never met me before, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside, and I am having a little bit of that guilt and shame surface because I didn't come in earlier when I could have. But whether or not I should have, that's another story because I really, really did enjoy my day off. It's Monday, you guys. On Mondays, we pick a new word. And again, if you've never popped into one of my lives before, every Monday we pick a powerful word and we hack away at it with experiences, conversations. Sometimes it's a lesson that I've come across. Sometimes it's a lesson in my own experiences or adventures. Sometimes it's a lesson in somebody else's, the example in their experience or their adventure, right? Today we're going to pick a word. Today we're going on to our 26th word. We're almost halfway, you guys. I can't believe we have been doing this for over 6 months now. 6 months we've been doing this. And I have found it to be so beneficial for myself. And once I iron out the few kinks, as I actually delve in a little bit deeper as I'm doing the detailing of what I want to bring to the table as putting a deck of cards together, right? And it's not like tarot cards, but they are powerful words. They're words that hold weight, they hold meaning. And if we can delve into these words, oh my goodness. I'd much rather move forward in a little bit of a realistic lesson, right? Rather than something that can't be proven. Lots of us, we go about our lives and we are afraid to make those big moves, right? We get these ideas and we just kind of dance around them, right? Or we put them off or we talk ourselves out of them, right? And that is only in that fear of, right, not wanting to make, right, those ripples, those changes, because once we do make decisions, change naturally has to happen, right? And then and sometimes we make those decisions and don't move towards those decisions, but those decisions have been made. That change is coming, and if you can't move out of the way a little bit or move towards it or move into it, right? Or move out of it, depending on the experience, right? That change is coming. And I'd much rather put one foot in front of the other a little bit myself than sit back and wait for the 180 or the 360, depending if it's repeat. Okay, you guys, let's pick this first word, or not 26th word. It's not the first word, the 26th word that we're going to delve into this week. Tonight, we're just going to do a little bit of first impressions, right? The first perspective that comes to my mind when we hit that word. In the moment, if it happens to be a word that we've already done, in the moment, I would gonna say it came across our paths for a reason, so we'll delve into it again. But whether or not we come back to it tomorrow, we'll see. It may be a lesson for just the moment, or maybe a lesson that we have to do on repeat, because a lot of this work is the repeat, right? Because we really don't put the efforts in, right? That we know we could, that we know we should, right? Okay, there's a lesson in that. A lesson in that for me. Okay, you guys, the word we're going to talk about all week, this week, here we go, here we go. A good word, a good word. Oh my goodness. Freedom. Wow. This is an impactful word only for the fact that I feel that I'm fighting for the freedom. I am fighting to be free of, I think, a lot of programming that has been going on epigenetically in my family's background, both sides, my mother's side and my father's side. And even though they were opposite, they both came with packages of issues. And right, being the daughter of an empath and a narcissist, or right, opposite ends, it has allowed me to grow into an adult that has unique and dynamic ideas herself. But those ideas came from choices, right? Because as much as I favored one parent over another, right? Nobody likes that pain. Nobody wants to be around someone, right? That doesn't like you, right? That doesn't want you around. That reminds you every day, right? That you have nothing to offer. So I am grateful, I have to say, that, because there were opposites in my family, that I took it upon myself to be able to pick up the traits, right? The good traits from one parent, right? And maybe discard some of those other traits that I didn't understand, that I didn't appreciate, or I didn't think that in any way was pertinent to who I was, because, right, I was my father's I was my father's daughter. But in saying that, I also have to say, right, my mother was her own person too. She was fighting for her own freedom her entire life. And as an adult, I could recognize that in her confusion, in her movement, right? But it didn't stop her from moving. It just sometimes, right, didn't give her the answers that she wanted, or she needed. Or maybe they did, and those were just not conversations that I was privy to, right? This whole thing was to fight for my freedom, personally, my freedom, right? I have been uh you know a member of a family who I'm going to say truly valued the members of their family, and utilized uh each member to uphold and support and contribute to that family. You know how we say we're all part of village, right? You need the blacksmith, you need the baker, you need the doctor. But within the family unit too, there's really noticeable differences. So, like I said, being able to pick traits and values that I appreciated, or discard, right, ideas, right, some of these programs that I was forced to choke down. I choked them down, but just because I choked them down didn't mean that I took them on as my own, that I took them on as truths, because, right, it wasn't me. And because I could clearly see the two extremes, right? Something must have clicked that made it so that I took, maybe it was the safer route, right? Maybe it was the route where, you know, well, I can tell you what it was. It was the love, right? It was going and following and being as close to that feeling of being loved as I could possibly get, because right in the two extremes it was only one-sided. I always felt that way, right? I always felt that way. And I didn't wake up to any of these ideas until well into my 50s. But you start putting things together as things come across your paths, and you delve a little bit deeper when something big and juicy comes across your path, and you just dig into it like a pit bull and a piece of raw meat, and right. And sometimes you can make some movement that way, if only it is to recognize what not to do next time around, right? Because everything comes around again. If you don't catch the lesson, it'll come around again. How often, how fast? Well, that's another story. But, right? Be optimistic that it comes around anyway, because I would hate to think that I miss any kinds of lessons. And it's because it is in the lessons that we finally get to recognize those mistakes that we made along the way, and to recognize that something that we always thought was 100% evil, ugly, polluted, right, might have only been broken to the core, right? And then something that was beautiful and kind, right, might have been, well, influencing in a manner to well, keep the peace, right? Keep the conflict to a certain level. Won't go any deeper than that because it's not part of the lessons this week, right? But this freedom, they talk about shedding some of these problems that are passed down from one generation to the next generations. And I see them in my own family, in my own dynamic family, and I see the brokenness of each one of my sisters and myself and my mother and my father and my grandparents, right? I see that, and I see that where we made our mistakes in that. But everybody makes different mistakes, right? And in making different mistakes, you have different symptoms. And everybody's trying to fix the symptoms because we can all have similar symptoms. But right when really we're supposed to be dealing with the problems. And part of not being able to get free is because we're spending so much time just focusing on the symptoms, in how we cope, how we deal with the problems, how they surface in our lives, right? Like me as a stressed out teenager. As a teenager, was super hyper vigilant, super into her own self because she had no way to express what was going on in her life, because I don't know, she wasn't seeing it anywhere else, and everybody else in her own family just seemed so involved in their own life that it just didn't seem that it would be, well, maybe taken considered seriously, right? But I never woke up to any of these ideas, like I said, until well into my 50s. And then I start paddling to all of this. Why? Because I saw how trapped I was in all of this. And I trapped myself in my choices. I trapped myself. I could have chosen differently, but for different reasons, for good reasons, for silly reasons, right? For reasons that I don't fully comprehend in the moment, right? I made choices. And choices brought about the change in my life. But eventually it led me here, right? Having these I think they're pretty heavy conversation. I think they're conversations that I don't think a lot of people, right? It's probably why I don't get a lot of people jumping into these because they are heavy, right? And they're not conversations that people usually vocally express, right? All of that usually is just expressed here or expressed in the syn- in the system. I was going to say symptoms, but maybe I should say symptoms, right? Because we always look at, right? How do we lose weight? How do we quit smoking? How do we quit drinking? How do we quit this? Right? Well, the answer to that is, right? Don't worry about the symptom. Worry about what caused you to need to focus on that symptom, to actually take that symptom on as something to keep your system calm, right? We concentrate too much about those things that we can't control, and we really can't control what we comfort ourselves in. What we can control, though, right, are those questions that we've always had, that possibly that we can search out some answers and make a little bit of movement for ourselves, depending, right, depending on each one's individual need, because you're going to need something different than what I need. And right, I pray that everybody gets to have that loving, right, caring upbringing that grows them, that builds them into healthy, emotionally, physically, and socially adults, right? Because that's what we pass down. So when we get this word freedom this week, the first impression for me is this fight that I'm having right now to kind of possibly make a little bit of headway in the problems of our family, right? Maybe going back lifetimes. And I would sure like to see my nieces and nephews do a little bit better, right, than what our family did, right? I wasn't the one to start that ball rolling. I don't even think my father was the one to start that ball rolling. It started, right? But it is a slow process. 100%. So freedom for me, first impression, is what I'm doing here in showing up here, right? In moving towards some of these realizations that are not everybody's realizations, but they're mine, right? So I've got to kind of follow, I got to kind of delve into them because I see the evidence of the answers to all those questions that I've had my entire life. And even though a lot of those answers I don't necessarily appreciate, no, that's not true. I'm going to say I do appreciate. I do. 100% I appreciate the answers. But sometimes, right, the answers are hard to digest. Sometimes the answers are the answers, the evidence. So you have to accept them for what they are. But they can be heartbreaking. They can be difficult to absorb. I'll just call it absorb. They're hard. They're hard to absorb. They're hard to let go of sometimes, right? But it's part of the process. If we want to be our own, right, our own commanders of our own ships, if we want to be the kings of our own castles, if we want to call the shots, if we want to make our own decisions, we have to, right, make those decisions, and we have to move towards those decisions, because like I said, the moment you make a choice, change has to come. Change is going to come. And if you don't move towards and in that contribution to the change, right, If you just sit there and wait for the change to happen, guaranteed it will be painful, right? 100%. And, lots of the times that we don't know what's going on, even for myself, right? I go through these things and I don't get it, but I just trust in this process that something will come across my path, whether it's a lesson or a conversation or an experience or an adventure. And in that is the possibility of resolution, right? And once that resolution comes, that freedom comes from that entrapment of the symptoms, right? And true freedom, right? I know that freedom. I know what it is to beat something that you think is beating you, right? I will never ever gamble anything. I won't even buy a lottery ticket, not for myself, not for anybody else. My days of gambling are over, right? But I made that choice that I wanted, right? I had to stop gambling. I made that choice. I didn't necessarily move towards that choice. And so the process, right? A little bit painful, but nonetheless, right? I'm not gambling, right? It could have been a little bit less painful than it was, but it's a done deal now, right? And you just check that one off, right? And you go on to the next one, right? Knowing that you've got this now. You've taken in the lessons. You're free of that. You're not chained to something that you thought you had no control over, right? Right? And you just come to realize that you had more control than what you thought you had, and right? And there's the freedom right there, and just knowing that. You guys, I am pooped. I am done with my day. I don't think I have another half an hour before it's pajama time, but I wanted to show up. I had to show up, right? It's it's who I am. I show up fresh like a loaf of bread every single day. And if I didn't show up, oh my goodness. You think being a little bit late lets the guilt and shame surface? Can you imagine what's going to happen the first day that I don't show up on my live shows, right? Oh, now there's an experience that I don't want to have. So I show up. And I won't get that 180 or 360. Maybe it'll just be a little 45-degree angle. I'm good with that. Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer. We'll see each other tomorrow. Bye bye.